Could you let me know if you can see the screen?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. Hello, everyone, again, and welcome to our today's session, Effective Campaigns in Support of LGBT Rights, How to Avoid Instrumentalization and Communicate Without Playing into Polarization. My name is Svetlana Zakharova. I work with ILGA-Europe, and I coordinate Strategic Communications Program. Before we will move to the session, I would like to say that this session is being recorded. So if you have any security concerns, please turn off your camera and change your name. Welcome again. I'm very happy that we're having this session because I doubt that there is a country in our region where LGBT people are not being used by different political powers to get power, and our opponents create a lot of very harmful and dangerous narratives that affect our work, that affect our life. And I know that it's very hard sometimes not to be reactive. And there is a question, is it possible to do it differently? Is it possible to communicate with our target audiences without playing into these harmful narratives and without basically talking about them? And definitely there are ways, and I'm very happy that today with us there are three amazing activists who will share with you the experiences of campaigning. Today with us, first of all, Luca from Háttér Society from Hungary, and she will talk today about the experience of 14 civil society organizations in Hungary who basically responded to anti-LGBT referendum that took place last year, and the referendum actually failed. And also today with us, Alberto and Javier from Spain, from the organization La Intersession, and they are going to talk about Spanish experience where more than around 30 organizations managed to successfully campaign for the rights of trans people. And I'm sure that Alberto and Javier will walk us through their experience, how they were analyzing social networks, ecosystems, how they were defining values, and what kind of additional value it brought to their campaign. But before I will start, I would like to say a few words about Strategic Communications Program by ILGA-Europe. Basically, ILGA-Europe for many years is working on communications, but in 2019, there was a communications need assessment organized in Europe and Central Asia, and basically this new strategic communications program was launched. And I believe that with this program, we can be a bit more strategic in providing support for the movement on communications. Within this program, there are different learning and finding opportunities, and also we expect to organize more learning events of different kinds of on communications next year, so please stay with us. And also, I would like to bring your attention to several resources. You can see the new slide, right? Yes, to some resources on communications that were produced by us or with our participation. And basically, you can use those resources already. First of all, I would like to bring your attention to Skills Boost. Basically, Skills Boosts are online learning sessions on different topics on communications. Each Skills Boost consists of 2 sessions. During the first session, we try to provide some learning, then participants receive homework, and in a month we are meeting again, and those people who did their homework are getting feedback from communication specialists or other activists. This year we organized 3 skill boost sessions, one on effective fundraising, another one on data visualization for LGBTI communications, and the third one on media interview for LGBTI activists. All these sessions were recorded and you can find them and watch them. Another one resource I would like to bring your attention to is resource hub created by ILGA-Europe, and basically there we tried to gather different resources that can be useful for LGBTI activists and organizations. It's not only about communications, but on different topics like community organizing, advocacy, and others. Important thing, if you want to use the resources of the resource hub, you need first to register, and also there is a separate section with the resources which we consider more sensitive. And to get access to these resources, you need to go through the verification procedure. The third resource is a Framing Equality Toolkit. And I can say that I started to use myself this toolkit when I still based in Russia and worked with Russian LGBT movement. And I think that it's an amazing resource because basically it explains in quite simple language what are narratives and what is framing and what is messaging. And also in this resource, you can find some tools for low budget communications or even communications without any budget. So check it out. At the last resource I would like to bring your attention to is our Facebook. It's communication support group for LGBTI activists, and basically it is a space where you can go and ask questions and receive answers and basically talk to other people who do communications for LGBTI work in different countries of Europe and Central Asia. And I think that I will stop here and I will stop sharing my screen. And I'm very happy to start this session and to pass the microphone to Luca, who will talk about experience of Hungary and Háttér Society. Luca, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. And it's great to see so many of you here. I will share my screen and I will hope it is working. So if you can just give me a quick yes, that would be great. Perfect. Thank you. So my name is Luca Dudic. I'm one of the executive board members and the communications director of Háttér Society, which is the oldest and largest LGBTQI organization in Hungary. And this presentation will be about an anti-LGBTQI referendum that the infamous Hungarian government with Viktor Orbán has initiated last year, and there was a joint CSR response, and it was coordinated by Amnesty International Hungary and my organization Háttér Society, which is why the two logos are here on the slide. So I will start with a little bit of context. Hungary is quite infamous now for its anti-LGBTQI context, but just a quick rundown. In 2018, the government banned gender studies as an academic degree. And then around 2019, we have seen that the previously used scapegoating against the refugees and migrants have started to become less and less successful. So that was around the time that we saw a shift towards anti-LGBTQI narratives and propaganda. So one of the first one was that the president of the parliament said that same-sex parenting is similar to pedophilia. This is something that is probably very similar to a lot of the far-right politicians saying homophobic remarks in your countries as well. And then we had a consumer protection authority fining Coca-Cola for a poster that depicted same-sex couples. They denied the ratification of the Istanbul Convention. And then it was 2020 when the COVID crisis happened, when the first anti-LGBTQI laws were introduced. So this was a time where the right to assembly was basically denounced, because no more than two people could assembly because of the health regulations. So when they banned legal gender recognition, we didn't even have the means to protest. In the same year, they also put limitations on single parent adoption, and they also adopted a sentence in the fundamental law, which is Hungary's constitution, that says that the father is a man and the mother is a woman, which they later used to maintain the ban on legal gender recognition by the Constitutional Court. And then we go to 2021, and that was the time when the government introduced a propaganda law, which is very similar to the infamous propaganda law from Russia. So this means that there is an umbrella ban on all things that could be the promotion of LGBTQI topics or identities when it comes to minors. And there are three specific sectors that are singled out in the laws, which is the media, education, and goods and services. So in practice, this means that if you have a book that is about or that features an LGBTQI character, it needs to be sold in a separate packaging and it cannot be sold within the 200 meters vicinity of a church or any kind of religious institution or any kind of educational institution. I am seeing some grimaces on your faces, which is, yes, I agree. And then there was an infringement procedure launched by the European Commission because the law is very obviously discriminatory towards LGBTQI people. And the response of our government was that Orbán Viktor himself announced that there would be a referendum to show the world and to show Brussels that there is public support for this propaganda law. It was very much up in the air when it would be, how it would be, but after another modification of the law, they put it on the same day as the national elections. So we knew that the national elections would be sometime around April, and it was announced, the actual date was announced in the second week of January. So you might know that it was quite hard to have a timeline set up for a campaign that you don't know when the end date is. So that was something that we suffered with. And then another thing that we suffered was that the questions themselves in the referendum were incredibly manipulative and very transphobic and homophobic of themselves. So, you know, the question wasn't as many referendums around Europe nowadays are like, do you support same-sex marriage? No, they were like, do you support that children are shown media content that could be detrimental to their development? So as a civil society organization, how are you going to encourage people to vote yes to such a question? So that put us in a very precarious position. And for a long while, we were hoping that the referendum and the elections wouldn't be on the same day. And, you know, we have seen several referendum campaigns that called for a boycott. I think most recently, the Romanian example has been something that we followed very closely. The videos have been also incredibly good and also a source of inspiration for us. But unfortunately, since they were announced that they would be on the same day, the only way forward for us was to invalidate the referendum, which is a technical, a very straightforward, but a quite technical way. It just means that you cross both the yes and the no, and then it becomes invalid. And then even though you cast your ballot, it doesn't contribute to the validity threshold. Because that is 50% in Hungary, and that is something that we always we are above that in the national elections. It's around 70-ish%. It was 75 in this year. We also thought that this would be the government's strategy to mobilize the more homophobic and transphobic part of the society, but also to instill fear in people who don't have knowledge about LGBTQI people, who don't have personal acquaintances, to ensure that they are both voting for the government party and voting no, we do not support LGBTQI propaganda on the referendum. So, as I said, our only way to win was to invalidate the referendum, and there were 14 civil society organizations who collaborated in a campaign to counter the government's homophobia and transphobia. As you can see, the little one of the stickers in the right corner, but I also have a flyer here. All of our materials included the 2 axes to make sure that people understand how straightforward it is to invalidate their ballot. To only just cross the yes and the no. And even though we did do a little fact checking on the website that we launched about why the questions themselves are manipulative and how there is no such thing as, you know, for example, trans activists going in the Hungarian kindergartens and trying to operate on the children. The actual focus of the campaign was not that, but rather to highlight the families, the friendships that people have with LGBTQI people. We have done research previously on the base values of Hungarians, and it came out that the 3 biggest values that are shared across the country are safety, equality, and family. So that was something that we really wanted to focus on. And I think this is interesting. I mean, I do think our whole campaign is interesting, but when we think about these buzzwords, safety, family, equality, not so much, but safety and family, particularly, they are usually words that conservatives use in their campaigns. They are like, oh, we have to protect the children. Oh, you know, like they are really trying to play the safety and family card. And I think a lot of the times we can also very much embrace these values because our safety and our family is also important to us. And I will show you a video of the campaign in just a second. So because we had the referendum on the same day as the elections, we knew that to make sure that enough people vote in an invalid way, we had to convince around 2 million people, which is around 20% of Hungary's entire population. So our target audience couldn't just be LGBTQI people and their families, but also the movable middle. So people who either are open towards LGBTQI people or just don't really know much, but they are not particularly antagonistic towards us. So unlike our usual LGBTQI campaigns, the actual spotlight was not just on LGBTQI people. They were still very much involved in the campaigns, but the campaign highlighted cisgender and heterosexual allies because we wanted to make sure that people can connect to the people that we are highlighting in the campaign videos. And in the videos and the personal stories, they talked about how they want their loved ones to be safe and to be free of discrimination. I think we as activists sometimes have a hard time constructing messages that can be very, I think, relatable for the general public. And I think that this might be more of an Eastern European phenomenon, but when you want to talk about human rights, a lot of the times the response is that this is something that is, you know, very much far from people. This is something distant. And we didn't really want to use words that have been discredited by the government before, or words that are empty for everyday people. What we really wanted to do was highlight everyday stories, everyday scenarios, so that people can really imagine how it feels to be a parent of an LGBTQI child. And a lot of the times these are not incredibly specific towards LGBTQI people. When we talk about bullying in schools, when we talk about being harassed on public transport, these are not things that only LGBTQI people face. These are a lot of the times also issues that women, racial and ethnic minorities, religious minorities face, unfortunately. So we thought that this would be a good way to showcase how we have a lot of similarities. And now I will show you the video. So to do that, I will have to share another screen, and I will be hoping that that will work. So hopefully now you are seeing a YouTube video. I'm seeing some nods, and let's hope that the sound also works.
Amikor így rátok gondolok három gyerekemre, akkor az az igényem, hogy
It has English subtitles.
jogokkal élhessetek.
Hegedűs Emet vagyok, 18 éves.
Ági vagyok, Emett édesanyja, angol tanárként dolgozom.
Hogyan írnál le engem valakinek, aki nem ér?
Nem ismersz határokat. Nincs számodra lehetetlen. Amit egyszer elhatározol, azt tűzővízen keresztül tudod vinni. Mikor döntöttél úgy, hogy elmondod nekem, hogy transznemű vagy?
Inkább csak rájöttünk, nem? Mint nem az volt, hogy így el kellett mondani, hanem hogy így összeállt a kép, hogy mi volt ez az egész történés egészen kicsi korom óta, és akkor...
Igen, hogy megtaláltad, hogy ezt így hívják.
Igen.
Nem? Valami ilyesmi.
Igen. Szerinted miért nem fogad el engem, aki nem fogad el?
Ezt én is szívesen megkérdezném tőlük.
Mitől féltesz?
Attól félek, hogy igen, hogy mondjuk bántanak.
Akkor így az emberek től féltesz?
Igen, meg a motorozástól. Attól is féltelek, hogy olyan dolgokért annyival többet kell küzdened, amilyen alapvető jog lenne. Tehát, hogy összeházasodhass azzal, akit szeretnél, hogy gyereket fogadhass örökbe, és hogy ez mennyi energia. Téged hogy érint ez a népszavazás?
Azt tökre elszomorult, hogy ezt így komolyan gondolják. És tényleg ezek olyan kiforgatások, amit én már azt érzem, hogy valamennyire megszoktam, viszont amiatt meg dühös vagyok, hogy ezt meg kellett szoknom.
Mit éreznél, ha nem tennék semmit ebben a helyzetben?
Dühös lennék. És csalódott.
Mi ad neked reményt?
Ó, ez lehet, hogy nagyon sablonos lesz. De amikor kicsit elkezdem feladni, vagy ilyesmi, tudom, akkor mindig azokra a gyerekekre gondolok, majd az én gyerekeim lesznek.
Azokra én is.
És hogy nekik nagyon jó életük lesz, és ez nagyon sok reményt ad a fiatalok gyerekeim, az elendő gyerekeim,
Még az én unokáim.
és az unokáim.
Tegyünk együtt egy szabad, elfogadó és mindenki számára biztonságos Magyarországért. Érvénytelen kérdésre érvénytelen válasz. Csatlakozz hozzánk!
Én nagyon hetero vagyok.
Sorry, I am just having a little bit of trouble to figure out how I'm going to share another. Yep. Okay. So, we had 4 videos like that, 11 personal stories and testimonies. When we were recruiting for the videos and the personal stories, we didn't really have a very easy time, mostly because being out in Hungary is still not very easy. And when we were trying to find our participants, we really wanted to highlight different stories and different people. So because out of the 5 questions that were submitted for the referendum, 3 of them specifically talked about trans people, and it is, I think, a global phenomenon that people know less about trans people. They are less likely to have a trans acquaintance. So we really wanted to make sure that we have several participants who are trans, and Emmet was one of them. This is personally my favorite video of the 4. And out of the 11 personal stories, we also made sure not to highlight only Budapest-based stories, but also from even the smallest settlements. We had people from all different backgrounds. We had Roma people, we had religious minorities as well, because we really wanted to make sure that this campaign is not seen as something that is, a Budapest-based issue or something that only influences the white middle class, because LGBTQI people are everywhere. So that was something that we focused on. And then here I brought you some numbers about what we did. So we had activists in 83 cities. This was something that we really wanted to make sure that we were doing also kind of like grassroots activism part of the campaign, as it was part of it was in the same period as the general elections. We knew that we were less likely to be able to deliver our message, because if the online and the offline space is bombarded with messages at the same time. So we had more than 200 media appearances and a little bit more than 100 billboards. The thing is that the number of billboards could have been higher. However, in Hungary, most people have become so afraid of the regime that a lot of the billboard companies, that even those who are not owned by the government, and the majority of them are owned by the government, but the independent ones, we're happy to go forward with our billboards until they actually saw what they were. So this was an issue that we faced. That this kind of self-censorship is very much in effect in Hungary. However, when it came to volunteers, this was something that we very fortunately did not see. So we had more than 400 volunteers in more than 80 cities, so all across the country. And we were sending them flyers and stickers and posters, and we also had workshops for them to make sure that they had the toolkit to talk about the referendum, to make sure that they knew also how to stay safe. And with some of the with some of the CSOs, we also went to 20 cities in the final lead up to the campaign. So in the last 2 weeks, we went to 20 different cities. We picked those based on where we had a lot of volunteers all across the country, and we met with, I think, almost 100 of them. And for me personally, that was, I think, the most fruitful part of the campaign, because you could really see how much energy people were putting into them, into the campaign. And you know, we had, again, people from all kinds of backgrounds. So we obviously had, you know, the high schoolers who wanted to flyer after school. They might had, you know, like a little freedom club or something like that in their city. But we also had teachers who came to flyer with us and talk to people in the town that had around 20,000 residents. And a lot of people knew her because, you know, she teaches middle school there. So when they saw her with us, a lot of people came to say hi, took a flyer. And that was also something that we thought would really help, that it's not just people coming from Budapest, you know, trying to hand out a flyer and then leaving a few hours later, but it's people who are respected and, you know, tied into their own communities, having these conversations. And that is, I think, super important, because these kind of personal ties can be so strong that, for example, when the data came out about who voted how, not as on a personal level, but you can see by voting district, there was one village that all voted for the governing party, 100% of them. However, they also voted invalidly because there is one trans girl living in the village, and it was important for her to, you know, feel supported by her community, and they all did that. So I think that this just really highlights how personal ties and these connections can help our case, even if it can feel quite hopeless in the political sense. We also had several people who were pensioners. Some of them had grandchildren who are LGBTQI. Some of them just thought that democracy and liberalism is an important value for them, so they wanted to join. So it was quite amazing. We also had a few flash mobs organized. I think I have a picture of that. Yeah, so this one was on the Margaret Island. We had 75 people coming, and we did like the 2 axes. And as you might be able to see that there are also people from all kinds of backgrounds. I think that I might be running out of time. I'm looking at you, Svetlana.
There is still a bit.
Okay, good. So I think what is also important to see with this campaign is that with the 14 civil society organizations, for us it was very important to lay down the mandate of the coordinators and also the organization. So a lot of them really tried to help us with the volunteers, and they also asked their own people to take part in the campaigning. So that was something that was really good to see. And all of the messaging was first workshopped with the two coordinators, so Amnesty and Háttér, and then it was all assisted by two consultants from Equality Without Borders. So if you have any kind of campaigning that is quite large scale, then I really recommend reaching out to Equality Without Borders. They have amazing consultants, and for us it was also good to have that kind of outside perspective, because I think it's quite easy to get stuck in your own local context. So we had two consultants, and then we also did a focus group after we have kind of workshopped the actual messaging that we will use, but we also wanted to call the referendum a different name, because the government was calling it the child protection referendum, and we really didn't want to use their framing, so we prepared a few. So we prepared hate referendum, propaganda referendum, and lie referendum. It sounds better in Hungarian. And we all brought this to the focus groups. And we were sometimes quite surprised at how they reacted. But in the end, a lot of them, so the majority of them, said that propaganda referendum would be the best one. They didn't really feel that it was a hateful referendum, which I think is it was a very useful feedback for us, because the majority of the people who were involved in creating this campaign were LGBTQI themselves. So for us, I think it was a hateful referendum, but I think it's an important feedback that the majority of society doesn't see that. And if you're really trying to target the movable middle, then you really need to create materials that resonate with them. So that was something that we very much focused on. And as you could see the video with Ági and Demet, this kind of familial love was something that we really tried to push forward. We also had a few debates, and we found that when the opposition, so I mean like the conservatives, the government refused to talk to us, so we didn't have I will give the floor to you in 1 minute. So we didn't have the opportunity to debate about the referendum, but they did send some of the closely tied gongos or public media people. And a lot of the time they were, talking about these very distant issues, about how having a referendum is always a good way to showcase the will of the people. And then we realized very quickly that bringing up our own personal experiences about going to school as an LGBTQI person, or attending university, or being on public transport is something that they don't really have an answer to, because at the end of the day, there is very little percentage of people who are going to be debating with you when you say that nobody should be harassed on the tram or on the train. I'm not saying nobody, the extremist far right might, but I don't think those are the people that we are campaigning for. And I think I might have one last result. So yes, we did have an invalid referendum. So this means that almost 2 million people voted invalidly in all 4 questions, and therefore it didn't reach the validity threshold. And then you can see 2 very cute pictures. So this is Ági and Demet on the left, and on the right you can see István and Eva, who are the grandparents of one of the only activists in Hungary who is out as a person living with HIV. So it was really, really cool to have him also featured in the campaign. And I thank you for your attention, and I will give the floor back to Svetlana.
Thank you very much, Luca. I'm sorry about flagging about time.
No.
It's my least favorite part, basically, but thank you so much for this presentation. I think it's indeed inspiring. Myself, I work quite a lot with activists from different countries, and sometimes I can hear how they're saying, but campaigns are possible in one country, in some specific countries, probably somewhere closer to the West, but not possible in other places. And I think that your experience and everything you share actually showing that changes are possible in very different contexts. And thank you so much for that. I have seen that some of you were asking questions in the chat. I'm paying attention to that, and all the questions are noted, and we will come back to them closer by the end of the session. And now I would like to give the floor to Alberto and Javier from Spain, who will talk about different country and different context, but I think also they will talk about values and how actually we can use our values and all the beautiful things to campaign for our rights. Alberto, Javier, I'm very happy to give the floor to you.
Yeah, our microphone. Hi, hello.
Hello.
So thank you very much, Svetlana and Luca. Thanks, Luca, for the presentation. We were like very happy to hear all the things that you were mentioning, because actually we were so like relating to many of the things. So yeah, thank you very much. So I am Javier from La Intersección.
I am Alberto from Intersession.
And just to mention, La Intersección, we are a collective of people that we work on strategic communication for social change. We do collective campaigns, we do digital analysis, and we are also education. Oh, sorry, they are ringing someone in my house. So we do also one of our big aims also is to share all the knowledge that we create through the campaigns and through the digital analysis and everything. So we are creating kind of an pedagogical community, let's say like this, because what we actually want to is to increase the possibilities and the knowledge around communication within the context of civil society organizations. We are going to talk about Project Hortensia. Project Hortensia is a campaign that we did last year to raise awareness on trans realities, especially on the youth and the childhood. We did this campaign at the same time that what it was called the trans law was being processed, or like actually was being accepted. So we did this campaign actually to parallelly to try to support or try to raise awareness of like what are general society perceiving about trans people. So we thought there cannot be a change just changing a law. Actually, we have to change the perception also in order for trans people to don't be violated, basically, further than the law, what the law would say, what the law would actually present. Was I clear? Because
Yeah.
Someone is thinking, right? Yeah, probably. Okay, sorry. Direct issues. So just to start, we are gonna share a video, which is one of the video of the campaigns. We have quite some few. Wait, there you are.
Hola, soy Chloe Carmarza y soy una niña trans de 11 años. Le voy a agradecer a mi madre con este ramo de ortesis por estar ahí todos estos años de lucha en los malos y los buenos momentos. Hola, soy Chloe Carmarza.
Sorry, some issues. So we wanted to share the video first, and then now we'll explain how we got there. Just to share the first or the main value that we have worked with during the campaign, it was gratitude. It was actually the main value that kind of flew all over the campaign, and that it actually gave the result to these kind of videos that we will talk a bit later. So just a moment. Sorry, we have something a bit unpredictable now right now in our house. So we are gonna start first talking about the digital research. Okay, one of the main things that we do develop digital research in order to actually understand what is actually what is actually the conversation in media and in digital networks. So one of the things that I can say, sorry, because of the inconvenience, is that because we are talking to actually middle audiences, actually Dutsa was actually mentioning a lot this, we did have to study what was the conversation in media and digital sphere, let's say. So with digital research, you can like
yeah, well, I think this is the slides.
No, actually, I didn't really.
So we made the digital analysis, and when we saw each platform, we saw that some of them were more hateful than others. Surprisingly, Facebook was less than the rest, and also Instagram. So that also guide our strategy to make more communication on those platforms. Another thing that was insightful from the analysis is that some content that they looks kind of right, in fact they were not good content, because even then visibility strategy for LGBT movement could be a good strategy on social media, and sometimes it gets viral through bubbles of hate. So we cannot really expose people with we are really exposing people with this content. And also we find that we also later bring some content about non-binary identities to the focus group, and that help us to see how hard was this those reality to approach for our audience. And we get some learnings around that.
So yeah, just I always find a bit difficult to explain this, because in a sense, so me as a non-binary person, I find it hard to say like, watch out when we want to give visibility to non-binary people. But actually, in fact, for middle audiences, it was really hard to understand. And the fact, in a matter of facts, it was that when non-binary characters, in the case, for example, of Valkyria, was shown, even though visibility is super important for LGBTIQ people, actually it turned wrong. So because of the way it was communicated or whatever, it actually produced a lot of trigger by middle audiences. So we had to study, or we had to actually understood that this was happening.
Yeah, we cannot use it because we have to learn how to produce content around this to don't drive hate. Another insight from the research was that we find an alliance between right media and exclusionary movement. Those right media that never provide voice to feminists, they were providing voice to transphobic feminists. with stories, fake stories, personal fake stories, I don't know how to call them, around transphobia and so on. And all those stories had a conclusion around the trans law. Even they were testimonials and fake stories. They all end on the trans law. Also, we make an analysis on Twitter. We get tweets around gender identities, and we find really large communities pro LGBT. So this was real good news for around the context. But even that we are a majority, we find that all those communities, half of the top content, half of the agenda was reactive towards far right or trans exclusionary movement. So we find a lack of positive narratives or own narratives around LGBT issue. That we highlight this with the organizations involved, and this helped everyone to acknowledge that we have to move on and find new stories to tell. Also, we find some connections between trans exclusionary movement and far right community, because some retweets were in between those communities and so on.
Yeah, also there's something that it was really important that we saw through this analysis. It was that the fact that trans exclusionary movements and far right were really coordinated on their agendas. We were more, but we were much less coordinated. And in fact, we are much more difficult to coordinate because our agendas are more diverse, are more complex, our narratives are more complex. So we have to have a more complexity in order to coordinate. But the fact is that we were more, but we actually didn't know that we were more. We were not coordinated in our agenda. We were not coordinated in our narratives, let's say.
Just one thing that I didn't tell to you is that each point on this visualization is a Twitter user, and users are connected through lines that are retweets. So we find users that connect more because they make more between each other, and those are the communities.
Yeah.
So I think I already speak about this, but as a summary, trans exclusionary movement makes a lot of noise, but they are not a majority. They have a clear and simple agenda. Far right focus on creates an enemy, because like leftists, LGBTI, everything is like the same. It's also really simplistic, and there's a lack of agenda on pro rights communities, but we are a large majority, and we have a real power to realize content.
So just to add, it's not just a lack of agenda, it's a lack of positive narratives. So because our agenda is mostly, we are talking here in Spain around trans issues, is mostly reactive. So we have an agenda, but it's actually reactive, and we lack actually positive narratives, or proactive narrative, let's say like this.
And we always say that we cannot be always online responding to far right and so on, because we make them viral. So this was also a learning that we always try to share with organizations. Well, the last insight around the research was that we find some inspiring stories that were really helpful to guide our strategy. Some of them were allies showing support as teachers and defending from bullying a trans girl, or parents showing publicly defending their children, saying that they were proud about their trans boy or girl. And this last story was really important on the process, because was really inspiring. It's about a parent. It's about a parent that is going with his child to the school, and they find in a wall a lot of notes, and they see that there are notes that are telling to a trans girl, good luck for your transition. Sorry, about your transition. And so they let a note, and a week later they pass again through this wall, and they find another note from the trans girl, saying thank you to all of you for all the love that you have shared here on this wall. So it was a grateful story that really inspired us to take this value on the campaign.
So we did some focus groups based on our digital research, and also on different meetings that we have had already with different organizations. And through the focus group, we actually wanted to extract which actually was the values and the narratives that were gonna work. Just for you to know, because our target audience, it was not going to be LGBTIQ people, and it was not going to be people that are already convinced. Actually, we wanted to go to middle audiences. We actually had to do persona exercise of imagine who actually are the people that are going to receive the information. This exercise is made in order for later on, when we do the content, we actually can strategically direct the content to this kind of person. So when we decide, actually we have here Carmen and Paco, and we are two of the characters. They are not real people. Is like intelligence, artificial intelligence pictures, meaning, and we actually had to define these characters for the focus group, but also for strategically decide which content go to which people on which platform. And yeah,
and because we have somehow to empathize with them to know how to talk with them. Yeah.
So as a target audiences on the focus groups, they were all straight and cisgender. So it's a bit like what Lucha also was saying. That's why we were like, okay, this is really relatable. We wanted people that would have positive views towards LGBTIQ people, but express doubts on trans and non-binary people. So, you know, like, it would be like, I don't know, I have a gay friend, but actually I don't know anything about trans people. That would be kind of the case. And we wanted people that they would be in contact with young people. So it could be like fathers, mothers, teachers, doctors as well. So after doing all the focus group, we actually struck some values. They were really important. One was respect and equality. Another was care and protection. And another was gratitude. So also in relation to what Lucha was saying before, we are also very much on to reclaim certain values that are actually, we actually led the conservative, the conservative movements take this value and kind of own them. Actually, we want to re-own them. So like tradition, protection, child protection as well is something that is actually also our value, and we actually can show it later why it can be our value. So that was a focus groups. As a part of our way of working, one of really our main goals is not just to raise awareness or do advocacy, is actually to share on the knowledge with the collective that we work with, so we can increase their possibilities, so that when later on the campaign is done, they actually can change something about their communications. So this we do it by doing workshops during the campaign with them that generate some new strategic vision on their comms. We write articles that are public, obviously. We made them participate on the focus groups as an observers, so they actually could see the focus groups. And then we later on we gave them some like article about the focus groups, and we create kind of the community through the newsletter, Telegram channel, and some other WhatsApp communities, because it was really important for us to actually make it collectively. This the result was, well, you have here the result, but they're just numbers, let's say. Those are our steps on the collective campaign. So you have kind of an overview. We do the digital analysis. We actually explain. We do some mapping on LGBTIQ collective, and we kind of try to involve them.
Yes, we always make interviews to organizations and collectives to know what they are really, what they are the moves, what they are on, and so on.
Communication needs.
And this helps a lot to make this process work.
So then we do the focus group. We do some capacity building, which it will be more like what we have, the trainings and the sharing. We do a creative process, dissemination, and evaluation and learning, which is also very important. This we explain because we want, our aim is to do collective campaigns, which in different with classic campaigns, which are more like one direction, and they have more hierarchical movement, let's say. And normally they have logo, which is everything okay, but we try to do as a collective. So we try to work with different actors in a more complex way. We do collaborate with these actors during the whole process, and we do it with no logo. We do it with no logo because in our understanding, it's also a very good strategy to actually be more valid for middle audiences, because middle audiences sometimes when they see a logo, they say like, okay, this is kind of some kind of LGBTIQ lobby. I don't want to know anything about these people. So we actually kind of dismiss the logo in order to be a bit more to get a bit deeper into certain bubbles or communication bubbles that we echo chambers somehow that we never get. And we also work with positive narratives and value and not issues. So we work with values because we think that middle audiences are going to understand better values than problems.
This approach is useful for communications, but it's also useful for movement building, because in that way organizations can find their role, and they can accommodate their differences. They can work together without showing, without being public, and like a manifest. They work together in the issue.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go a bit faster because I think we are like delaying a bit. So our narrative strategy, which I think is really important, it was based on gratitude. We did it through hopeful stories. We work with unexpected messengers, and we did authentic content. I'm just going to talk briefly about what is unexpected messengers. I think what we expect when we are going to do a trans campaign is that the messengers are going to be trans people. So unexpected messengers, in this case, it would be to study who actually have to be the message for our target audience in order that they get actually an empathic process to this issue. So in this case, for example, unexpected messengers to be for the campaign that the messengers would be straight cisgender people, so that they wouldn't have to be necessarily trans people. Actually, they were both, but in this case, it would be people that you wouldn't expect, for example, that they have relation with trans people. You wouldn't expect. It has to do with what we have collective unconsciousness around LGBTIQ issues.
And in some way, we are kind of lucky because unexpected messengers normally are hard to find, but in our case, our grandma, our parents can be unexpected messages for many people. So this is a really good strategy to go through.
And just to last mention, the project in English is called the Hydrangea Project. And basically, Hydrangea Project, it was chosen because when we did the focus group, we realized that middle audiences wouldn't relate very well with flags, and especially trans flags. They didn't even know that that was a trans flag. So they actually were really reactive about the trans flag. And on the other hand, we knew that giving flowers is a gesture of gratitude. So we kind of put things together and we choose hydrangea because actually hydrangea has the colors of the trans flag. So we will be using the trans flag in a color palette, but actually we wouldn't be placing the trans flag. And also because hydrangeas, there's actually a very beautiful thing because we will explain it. Is that the hydrangea, when you put the seed, you actually don't know the color of the flower that is going to come out. And it depends of the ground that the flower comes, and actually you kind of choose one of the colors within the trans color palette, let's say. So it was kind of a good, creative choice in order to still have the trans flag, but without naming it directly. So this is some of the videos that we actually did, and there were videos from trans people thanking cisgender, straight cisgender people, and vice versa. So like two ways. For example, here Alex is a trans boy that is thanking his grandma because of she would help him through the teenager time, and he's helping. He's thanking her, and so somehow we find this kind of relation between like family relation and kind of love relation and somehow gratitude relation. And at the end, there will be always a call to action. So there would be always like, do you want to know more about trans realities? Then go there. Or do you want to help? So there was always a kind of a call to action through gratitude. Marisa is a teacher, or a cisgender woman. Is a teacher who is thanking her student, because thanks to the student, it was trans, she learned a lot about the protocols that exist within the educational system. So she also kind of relate to her, thanks her, and also give a call to action to teachers to find out what are the protocols in case they are in a situation like this. And the last one is Anya. She's a trans woman helping the doctor. Giving thanks to the doctor by because the doctor first thing that when she came into the how you call this in the clinic, he realized that the name of the ID card, it was not the same name that she was saying. So he was really cautious, and the first thing that he said is like, how do you want me to call you? So she tells the story that it was happening, and he's giving thanks to the doctor and also do a call to action. So this is kind of the videos we actually did for the campaign. Some of the videos, some of the part of the videos. And for the people that wanted actually to get a bit deeper into the information about trans people, we developed 3 podcasts led by a trans activist, kind of famous in Spain. So people that actually would want to get a bit deeper and navigate a bit more and get more information, they would get through the podcast.
And it's also around relationships of people where you find
exactly. It was like about family, about education, and about friendship. So it was everything about like what are the relations that trans people have like any other citizen. So it was in the end, what I say sometimes, like, we're trying to humanize trans people, because what actually the far right is trying is to dehumanize, to othering somehow. So we wanted actually to put them in society, to actually not to put them, they are already in society. We wanted to visualize that they are in society, they have their connection, they have their life as any other. I think I have to run, right?
Hola, me llamo Aida y soy la madre de Kip, un chico trans de 10 años. Quiero agradecerle que me ha ayudado a salir de la rigidez de los roles de género y los estereotipos. Me ha ayudado a ser más libre. Pero claro, esto muchas veces me ha traído algunos problemas, porque no todo el mundo lo entiende. Por eso te pido que te informes sobre la realidad de las personas trans para que puedas entender a niñas como mi hijo.
So, because we were in a collective campaign, the first videos, it was kind of the one that we produced, and then we did an open call for the organizations to send videos from their parents, mothers, doctors, whatsoever. So we started to receive videos like this that you can see is made by a woman with a mobile phone in her clinic because she's a dentist. So this video, which actually could seem very not produced and like the audio is bad and whatsoever, because she suddenly becomes a really unexpected messenger, which is a doctor or dentist or whatsoever talking about her children, it became really viral. So this video, suddenly we put it in Instagram, and it really became this kind of authentic content that goes viral. As an example of which kind of content it was created afterwards. Svetlana, I think we have to end, right?
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna skip this. Those are engagement strategies that we could talk about, but maybe it would be good for you to know how we have contributed through the campaign. And the most important for us is we have promoted the collaboration between NGOs that are working with together. We have changed some of the tactics, and the trans law was passed, no thanks to us, but we try to actually increase the awareness on trans people beyond the law. And since we didn't have really the time to talk about some stuff, we actually have a toolkit that talks about all these things in depth and with all the details that is needed. Something else?
I think it's fine.
I thank you. And thank you very much. Sorry for the inconvenience at the beginning.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Alberto and Javier. And again, sorry about signaling and stopping about the time, but this is part of my work, my job today. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think that across the entire region, our opponents more and more use anti-trans narratives to work against the movement, and I think that also the work you did in Spain is fantastic and showing the changes are possible. And we have quite a lot of questions, and I'm going to jump to questions. And actually, just a few minutes ago came a question from Leonor from ILGA, Portugal, and I'm going to start from it because basically it was my thinking and my question also for both of you, for Lutza and Alberto and Javier. So I will read it now. Hi, Leonor from ILGA, Portugal here. We have been trying to do some actions like this, but haven't been able to, because these actions cannot be done without the presence and insight from informal collectives, whom most of the time do not have time and structure to collaborate like this. I believe we can all acknowledge that this kind of organized actions are also made possible by some privileges that some activists do not have. So my question is, if you encountered such situations and how you managed to bypass them, creating the space and conditions for everyone to collaborate timely and without feeling left behind. And yes, this is a question for both of you, because in both cases, all these campaigns were organized not by one or two organizations, but basically by a group of organizations. And I'm curious, what kind of challenges did you have and what have you done to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, in fact, this is the context that we always face. In fact, we know that organizations were too focused on the trans law, and they didn't really have time to make communications towards the middle. So what we do is to be like a resource for many organizations to collaborate with them to make this more easy. And we really make a real open, we make a process that where they can participate or not, like they can just be observers and learn from the distance. They can just get the reports and the knowledge, or they can get more involved, and maybe at the beginning, maybe at the end. So it's really flexible because we know that they don't have time for do all of this, but we carry out with the work with anyone who is there willing to do it. And also sometimes when we produce those videos, when they see the video already done with all the strategy that is behind, when you see the video, you see that it is more easy than it looks when it's done. So you can replicate it and you can take the strategy and use it again. So for sure, this is time and resources is always a challenge between organizations. But if we make those processes where we learn how to share between organizations and so on, in fact help to everyone.
And just to add one little thing, that it really also helped for organizations, more really based organizations, that by the way is actually where we are coming from. So it's not like we have like it was that we did a consultancy. So we present kind of an open consultancy, so we had some money because we actually needed some people from base organizations to actually help us. In this case, it was for the sensitive lecture, we call it like this. So since we had some money, we actually could incorporate people from organizations that they were paid to do actually works within the campaign. And actually that made for the whole organization that these people was in to be completely engaged. So there was also an exchange of resources, like money resources, because we needed, but it was actually a really key point for them to have more organization involved, because they were already involved professionally, let's say, on the campaign.
Thank you, Javier and Alberto. Lucia, what was your experience?
So I think Hungary has a very different context. So because of the democratic backsliding that has been prevalent in the country and the shrinking civic space, we don't really have these kind of collectives, not about LGBTQI and not about any kind of other social movement. There are not even feminist collectives. So for us, this is not something that that we take into consideration in our work. We do offer consultancy, or no, so we don't offer, but we do ask for consultancy basically with people who are either on the intersection of with another minority group. So we made sure to consult with the Roma LGBTQI person. Similarly, a trans person was always consulted to make sure that that everything is going smoothly. So that is something that we do, but people are very unlikely to participate in any kind of organized activity. So I would be very happy if we had these collectives, but yeah, it's not something that is happening. There was just another law passed yesterday about sovereignty, as they call it. So any kind of assembly or organization that can be interpreted as being against the country. There is no sanction, but there will be a different institution or a distinct institution who will be doing these kind of inquiries into organizations and collectives. So I don't really see it happening, unfortunately.
Thank you, Luta. Well, maybe in the near future, closer future, there will be more cooperation. I really hope for that. And even without that, you managed to achieve beautiful results. So my fingers definitely crossed. My next question is actually for you. There was one of the comments on the chat, such a beautiful video and very vulnerable. How did you try to protect your safety, the safety of the participants in the video? I think it's also something that can be very relevant for so many contexts.
Yeah, so when we were approaching the participants, this was a conversation that we had with them up front, the possible consequences, and basically once we post something on social media, it's out of our control. Anything can be done to it. So we really try to be very upfront about what could happen, and we also offered the possibility of psychological support should they need it. But we were very happy that none of the participants who were involved in the campaign were targeted in the media. But this was definitely a concern. And we also had a participant. She was in one of the pictures. There wasn't the video, but the photo story where the girl is a lesbian, and both her parents were open of giving an interview to a magazine. But her mom had to quickly ask the PR or HR department whether that would be okay. And she was advised that obviously she can go ahead and do as she likes, but should she do the interview, there might be some negative consequences. So basically, and then informally she was told that she would be fired if she did that. So that was something that we really try to encourage people to put their safety and their existential security first before participating in the campaign.
Yes, indeed, those measures are very important, especially in some context, and I'm very happy to hear that. Yes, first of all, safety, and I think that's our shared value. Alberto, Javier, my next question is for you. Thanks for the presentation for La Intersession. You said that your target audience was never LGBTI people. How about LGBT people who are not very convinced when it comes to trans rights?
So
who are not convinced.
I mean, like it is definitely if we are talking basically of the transphobia that exists within the LGBT community, LGBT community. So it is needed actually also this campaign to raise awareness for trans people within the community. But the target was not them. It was especially cisgender straight people, even though we knew that the content that was done, it could also affect and raise awareness within the collective. And that awareness, by the way, it is really needed. So there is a lot of transphobia within the gay community. There's a lot of transphobia within the... So it is there, but it's true that it was not really the goal or the main goal that we had. Even though also the fact that many organizations were involved and they were LGBTIQ organizations, also I think it increased the awareness because the organization, they have the whole spectrum. So it did increase the awareness of people that might have not been too aware of the issues that trans people would face at that moment, of the trans law passing and a lot of hateful speech in
Well, I would say also that be careful to don't make counter narratives for small groups, as we saw that you have vast majorities of people that are pro LGTB. Well, in Spain, sorry. But don't focus. Sometimes when you want to convince these kind of groups, you don't have to really focus on them. You have to focus on your own agenda and what is really good, what make you thrive, what makes you be show your good things and not be focused on those negative points.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed, when I was thinking about this question myself, my idea was that basically those two target audiences are very different, and I don't think that it would be possible to talk with two such different target audiences within the same campaign. So that was my thinking. Luca, I have a question for you now, and it's about data analysis. When you were looking at all different feedback across different groups that were involved, were there any common themes which kept appearing? Also, when you had such read data, how you did decide what you would use and what you wouldn't use?
Very good question. So we did 3 focus groups, there was two in Budapest and one outside of the capital city. And we were quite lucky because we tried to do also a representative polling on social attitudes every year. And basically since 2016, we have been asking the same questions. So we can see how these values go up or down. So for example, support for same-sex parenting has increased from 23% to 65% by the end of 2022, so within 6 years. So those are, very positive trends. The 3 focus groups that we did also really highlighted how safety and family were something that resonated with people. And so I saw the questions earlier, and I did dig out the report from the focus groups. So what we did was we tried to show them pictures. These were just stock photos, but they were similar to the pictures that we would be using later. And we also shot a mini video that also talked about how a young couple wants someone who is very close to them and is gay to be safe and free in the country. And we all played these. So we played the videos, and so it wasn't us, but it was obviously an independent researcher. So they didn't actually know that it was done by an LGBT organization. They thought that it was, something either academic or something that could be for the opposition, the political opposition parties, the more liberal parties, which was, I think, helpful because they didn't come from the lobby perspective, or like the LGBT lobby perspective. And what Alberto and Javier were saying about the logos was also true for us. So we didn't have the logo of the organizations either, just this 2-axis one. So we were lucky that most of the research was saying the same thing, to really focus on these 2 or 3 things and just leave everything else behind.
Thank you. Thank you, Luca. Thank you, everyone. We have just a few minutes left, so I think that now we can slowly wrap up the event. And I'm very sorry that we didn't manage to ask all the questions. I myself have a list of questions I still would like to ask. I would like to remind everyone that we will share the recording of this video with everyone who registered for this session, and we also plan to publish this video afterwards. I would like to thank again our amazing speakers today, Luca from the Háttér Hungary, and Alberto and Javier from La Intersession Spain. And the last thing I would like to say is that we as ILGA-Europe plan to organize more similar events, all kinds of learning events on communication next year. So please stay with us, and I'm wishing everyone a very lovely day. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It's great to share.
Thank
with
you.
all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.